Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've got a really fascinating one for you today. We're strapping in for a high-octane analysis of a scenario that seems ripped straight from a romantic comedy.
It really does.
But it's built entirely on the rigorous and, I'd say sometimes terrifying principles of applied behavioral science.
That's the hook.
We are plunging into the story of a columnist, a celebrity athlete, and a huge career bet that, it basically treated a high-stakes relationship like a multi-week laboratory experiment.
That's a perfect way to put it. Our sources today center on the life and career of Rachel Westover. She's a popular columnist who, she earned the nickname the Man Tamer.
The Man Tamer, okay.
And this whole story, the entire narrative arc, is framed by this massive, highly public, career-defining wager she makes.
With who?
With a media mogul named Denton Morrison. And look, this wasn't some friendly bet over drinks. This was Rachel's fast track to the big time.
And the setting tells you everything, right? It's at Morrison's lavish annual brag party.
Exactly. It tells you everything you need to know about the scale of this negotiation.
So our mission here, for us, is to stop just summarizing the plot and really start dissecting the mechanics. We need to analyze exactly how these tried-and-true methods of behavior modification actually function.
Yeah.
Or, maybe more importantly, how they spectacularly fail.
Right. How they fail when you introduce them into the chaotic, messy, and, fundamentally irrational world of human romance.
The stakes for Rachel are just enormous. She's the star columnist for Belinda magazine, but what she's really gunning for is her own TV show.
A very profitable TV show on Denton Morrison's KTXK network. And Denton, he's always looking for a narrative, right? He sees reality show gold here.
But he wants proof.
He wants absolute proof that Rachel's column isn't just, fluffy advice. He wants to see a verifiable transformation.
Which brings us to the target, the subject of this whole deep dive.
Garret Wildman Kelly.
Garret Wildman Kelly.
He's the subject of the bet, an Australian professional indoor lacrosse player. He's a new guy for the Dallas Devils, and his performance profile is, it's all over the place.
In what way?
The sources confirm he leads the league in scoring and assists, so pure prowess on the field.
Okay, a star player.
But he also leads the league in time spent in the penalty box.
So he is, by definition, a brilliant but disruptive force.
He is the ultimate behavioral challenge. Yeah. He represents this raw, uncontrolled, high testosterone energy. And Denton Morrison, who knows this, he's the one who sets the terms of the wager.
He's essentially daring her.
He's daring Rachel to succeed where everyone else has failed to contain him.
And here's the initial, you have to call it a delicious irony that just fused this whole story.
Yeah, go on.
Rachel, the behavioral psychologist, she has a very well-established romantic type. She likes sophisticated men.
Right. The guys in business suits driving the BMWs. They're predictable, they're controlled, they're safe.
And Garret Kelly is the physical.
Well,
he's the antithesis of this.
A complete opposite. The source describes him as a gorgeous Neanderthal. He's got this gold-streaked brown hair that desperately needs a trim and stubble along what they call a chiseled jaw.
He's rugged, raw, and completely chaotic. So the moment she sees him, her carefully constructed intellectual preferences just dissolve.
Instantly. The source notes that despite her usual type, his sheer ruggedness immediately makes her think, of course, right now rugged didn't sound so bad.
And that's it. That intense, almost animalistic physical attraction is the emotional anomaly that just blinds the highly rational Rachel.
It really is. It's the engine that convinces her she can win this bet because the chemistry just feels so undeniably right.
She interprets that initial physical heat as a sign of, compatibility.
Compatibility and, crucially, pliability. She believes that because the chemistry is so intense, Garret will be uniquely motivated to, comply with her training regime.
So she sees him not just as a man.
Not at all. She sees him as a high-stakes, highly rewarding project.
Okay, so let's unpack the core philosophy here. Because Rachel's entire column, and therefore her whole potential TV career, it all rests on this one assertion.
That her advice is scientifically grounded.
Exactly. We're talking about applied psychology.
And that's the critical component. The foundation is laid out so explicitly in the column's letters section. A reader challenges her, suggesting she's just advocating training men like a dog.
Pretty common criticism, I'd imagine.
Oh, for sure. But Rachel's response is the core thesis. These principles work because they are directly derived from tried-and-true methods of behavior modification.
And to be fair, she's not wrong about the history of the method. This isn't some, new age relationship advice.
No, not at all. These techniques have been successfully used for decades for everything from, yes, dog training to helping people quit smoking. She is leveraging established principles of learning and conditioning.
They're specifically operant conditioning, right, where behavior is controlled by consequences.
That's it. And what's so fascinating is how she takes this rigorous, almost clinical framework and tries to apply it to a deeply personal, emotionally fraught relationship.
She sees bad habits, sloppiness, impulsivity, poor communication as just learned behaviors.
Exactly. Behaviors that can be extinguished and replaced with positive ones.
So let's detail these 10 commandments of man taming, because understanding the mechanism is, I think, the key to understanding where this whole system breaks down.
It is. It's a very structured approach, almost like an algorithm for improving a partner.
We can probably group them into a few categories.
Yeah, you can think of them as reinforcement and aversion therapy.
Okay, so starting with the positive side, the encouragement.
First is principle 1, teach by example. You model the behavior you want to see. Don't lecture, you demonstrate.
Makes sense.
Then principle 2, praise good behavior. This is just classic positive reinforcement. Immediate, specific praise when he does something right.
And that leads to principle 9, reward good behavior.
Right, that's the big payoff. Tangible benefits or, substantial positive attention to make sure the desired behavior repeats.
Okay, so that's the positive reinforcement side. Then we move to managing the undesirable actions.
Yep. Principle 3, distract. You divert his attention away from the unwanted behavior before it can even escalate.
And if that doesn't work?
Principle 4, substitution. You replace a bad habit with a specific, better alternative. So if he always watches hockey, you suggest a different shared activity.
And principle 8, restrict unwanted behavior.
Yeah, which is basically limiting the opportunity for the bad habit to even occur, like hiding the remote control or, barring access to a messy room.
And finally, we get to the punitive measures, the corrective stuff. This is what makes that letter writer so upset.
This is the controversial part. Principle 5, reprimand, a verbal correction. It should be immediate, consistent, but short and focused on the behavior, not the person.
And if that's not enough, principle 6, withhold affection.
A form of negative punishment. You withdraw positive attention when he does something you don't want.
Which culminates in principle 7, punish bad behavior.
Yeah, the most controversial one. Applying an adverse stimulus or consequence, like ignoring him entirely or imposing some kind of chore.
And then there's the final escape clause, the one that, to me, shows the theoretical limitations of her whole system.
Principle 10, acceptance.
The last resort.
Exactly. If, after all 9 other principles have failed, you cannot change the behavior, you have 2 choices. Accept him fully, flaws and all, or move on.
It's the admission that the scientific method has failed in this particular emotional ecosystem.
It's incredibly clinical, but here is the critical distinction that Rachel tries so hard to maintain. This is her ethical line in the sand.
What's that?
She assures her friends it's not about changing him as a person, but changing how he acts. He'll still be the man you love, only better.
And that is a very, very slippery slope.
It's where the whole thing begins to break down. Can you truly isolate behavior from identity? Especially when you're controlling what clothes he wears, who he sees, how he keeps his home.
She uses that distinction to rationalize her own manipulation.
Totally. She's essentially saying, look, I'm not changing his soul. I'm just optimizing his operating system.
Which brings us directly to the moment that launches the entire experiment.
A chocolate encounter.
Yes. And it's anything but rational. This isn't a measured, calculated meeting. It's just pure primal chemistry.
It all happens at Denton Morrison's party. Rachel is trying to focus on the negotiation, and she's eating her favorite comfort food, chocolate-covered strawberries.
And the chocolate melts on her fingers. A messy, vulnerable moment.
And in steps Garret, the gorgeous Neanderthal, looking a little rough around the edges, even in the expensive suit she later finds out Denton forced him into, and he sees her dilemma.
And the description of what happens next is crucial.
It is. It's not a kiss. It's an intervention. He draws her fingers to his mouth and just begins licking the melted chocolate off.
An act of immediate intimate service and just overwhelming sensual presence.
Rachel is utterly shocked. She's frozen. The source describes it as this white-hot moment. Hot, velvety tongue gliding over sensitive nerve endings, sending sparks of sensation traveling through her until her whole body practically quivered.
Wow.
She admits she felt weak in the knees and seriously turned on. She concludes that Garret Kelly and his amazing tongue had positively bewitched her.
So this is the massive flaw in her premise, right at the starting gate.
Absolutely. The decision to take the bet isn't based on some rational analysis of Garret's potential for modification.
No, it's based on overwhelming hormonal attraction. She wants him so badly that she believes her principles must work.
And who should walk in right at that moment?
Denton Morrison, of course.
Grinning like a genie whacked out on fairy dust. He sees the final seconds of this explosive chemistry and recognizes the narrative immediately. Rachel Westover and Wildman Kelly, why didn't I think of it before?
And he formalizes the wager right there.
On the spot, he emphasizes Garret's stats. Stellar performance balanced by massive indiscipline, the perfect visible symbol of chaos.
So Denton bets Rachel that if she can apply her man-taming principles and successfully calm down the wild man, she gets the TV show.
And his reasoning is simple. Garret has way too much testosterone in his system to tame.
And Rachel, who is just blinded by this rush of attraction and professional opportunity, accepts instantly.
Without a second thought, she dismisses Denton's warning and proudly declares, "This will be the easiest bet I ever won."
She mistakes instant physical compatibility for future behavioral pliability.
And the wager isn't just about career goals. It gets deeply personal because of the immediate sisterly conflict.
Right. Rachel's ambition is complicated by her older sister, Rhonda McMillan.
A major Dallas socialite, married to an oil tycoon, Harrison McMillan, and Rhonda embodies everything Rachel outwardly rejects.
Social conformity, rigid sophistication, wealth through marriage.
All of it. So Rhonda is naturally holding court at the party, and when Rachel mentions the potential TV show, Rhonda's reaction is immediate and chilling.
Her smile just disappears.
Replaced by an expression reserved for funerals and firing squads.
Rhonda views Rachel's column as ridiculous ideas and slutty. She fears the massive public embarrassment the TV show would bring to the family's carefully managed social standing.
For Rhonda, it's all about reputation and propriety.
And for Rachel, this is a massive motivation. Her ambition isn't just for success. It's a defiant middle finger to her sister's condescending judgment.
Oh, totally. She actively fantasizes about Rhonda being positively green with envy or shock when she introduces the muscular, untamed Garret Kelly as her date.
She sees the TV show as a pathway to a kind of professional credibility that Rhonda can't just dismiss as social climbing.
So the bet is sealed. It's fueled by hormonal chemistry, professional hunger, and this deep-seated sisterly rivalry.
She believes the science is sound, the subject is motivated by attraction, and the reward is a career triumph that will finally silence her biggest critic.
Everything seems perfectly aligned for phase one.
So Rachel moves from theory to practice. She begins applying the principles on their very first date. And we need to analyze these initial interactions, not as simple romance.
No, but as carefully constructed behavioral tests.
And the first date yields immediate, if maybe shallow, positive results. It really demonstrates the effectiveness of positive cues when the subject is highly invested.
Very invested. Garret shows up freshly shaved. That's a clear signal of his desire to meet her standards. It's an immediate, unprompted, positive behavioral change.
And they start opening up, which is critical for building rapport. Garret reveals he's not just a jock who plays lacrosse.
Right. He owns and operates a fire and safety company installing alarm systems.
So right away, Rachel's initial assessment of him as just a gorgeous Neanderthal immediately starts to crumble.
He's complex. He's a businessman. The physical attraction starts getting overlaid with intellectual surprise. And he also shows vulnerability. He admits he was raised by his mom and 3 sisters on a factory worker's wages, and that lacrosse offered him an escape into a macho game.
And that vulnerability probably makes Rachel feel less manipulative, too. She's likely thinking, I'm just helping this fundamentally good, multifaceted man polish his rough edges.
I think so. And she begins applying the principles right away. During a fast dance, Garret is just comically awkward, waving his arms like he's flagging down a plane.
Okay.
So Rachel laughs, but instead of using a reprimand, which is Principle 5, and might extinguish his desire to dance entirely.
She uses Principle 1, teach by example.
Exactly. She waits for a slow song, pulls him into her arms, demonstrating the desired behavior, close connection, less flailing, controlled movement. She shifts the context so he can succeed.
That's a very subtle but effective use of positive coaching. The reward is the physical intimacy, which reinforces the new behavior.
And the most profound use of teach by example happens later, in the bedroom, which Rachel justifies according to her own column's rules. First date sex is acceptable if done with respect.
So she uses their intense sexual compatibility as a tool for modification.
She does. By actively guiding and teaching him what she wants, she is reinforcing the intimacy and ensuring that their sexual connection remains, as the source says, awesome and fulfilling.
She's demonstrating that compliance leads to reward on the deepest physical level.
And this immediate success fuels her overwhelming confidence. Her postcoital assessment is that because they are so compatible in bed, she will have no trouble persuading them on everything else.
All the other behavioral targets, cleaning his apartment, grooming, and
And the most challenging of all, managing his dog. She literally thinks, I'll have him tamed in no time.
that overconfidence based on initial hormonally driven compliance is the key mistake.
It is. She underestimates the resistance that's going to come when the stakes move from pleasure to, a daily chore.
And the ultimate obstacle to domestic tranquility, Barney, appears on the scene.
Barney is the litmus test for her control.
Describe Barney for us.
Barney is described affectionately as this massive bitzer, a dog of mixed parentage, a mutt who has successfully flunked obedience training.
Okay.
He is a whirlwind of muddy paws, drooling, and massive enthusiasm. When they arrive at Garrett's apartment, Barney nearly knocks Rachel over.
But Garrett's response is interesting. It's a textbook application of two of her principles.
It is. He uses Principle 8, restriction, and Principle 4, substitution.
How?
He quickly distracts Barney with a treat, that's the substitution, and then he shuts him into the spare room, which is restriction, all so they can proceed with their date.
So this shows that Garret understands the language of conditioning.
He does, and he's willing to apply it to his dog, and by extension to himself, if the reward, which is time with Rachel, is high enough. It's temporary, but it shows possibility.
Okay, let's move to the wardrobe challenge. This is where Rachel applies Principle 2, praise good behavior.
A classic example of positive reinforcement working on a small scale. Rachel selects a flattering blue shirt and presents it with very specific praise.
She says,
Something like, I love this blue shirt. It looks so great with your eyes. Will you wear it for me? She links the requested action, wearing the shirt, to a personal benefit for him, looking attractive.
but Garret resists the new conditioning. He attempts a substitution of his own.
He does. He brings out this beloved ripped T-shirt featuring a well-endowed young woman, and he justifies the hole in the armpit as ventilation.
Classic. So what does Rachel do?
She holds the line by sticking strictly to the principle. She ignores the ripped shirt entirely. She focuses only on praising the blue color and its effect on his eyes.
Which is essential for reinforcement. Ignore the unwanted behavior. Focus all your energy only on the desired one.
And the result? A minor victory. He doesn't wear the tailored shirt she picked, but he chooses a blue T-shirt without any holes. It's a compromise, and it's achieved through selective praise.
She also begins the slow process of modifying his domestic habits. When she first sees his apartment, it's a total mess.
Scattered clothes, unmade bed, typical bachelor chaos.
But she doesn't lecture him, which would be a reprimand or a punishment.
No, instead she uses, well, it's an implied expectation. And later she applies praise and reward. When she returns, she notes that he has started making the bed and changing the sheets.
And this small behavioral change is a result of his intense desire to please her and maintain the rewarding connection they share.
What's so crucial here, though, is that Rachel's early successes are based, I'd say, 90% on Garrett's initial intense desire for her, and only 10% on the inherent effectiveness of the technique.
The principles only work because the subject is heavily personally invested in the outcome.
And that observation sets the perfect analytical stage for the counterpoint. We need to see what happens when that intense personal investment is completely absent.
Right. And we need to look at the parallel case study of Moira and Dave to see what happens when the science runs headlong into pure indifference.
The sources introduce Moira, who is Rachel's friend, and she is trying desperately to apply the man-taming principles to her boyfriend, Dave Brewer.
And Dave's an accountant, but his true love is professional sports.
Hockey, basketball, and now lacrosse. Moira feels completely ignored, like she's playing second fiddle to the TV remote.
So Moira's struggle highlights the difference between Rachel's scenario, where this intense attraction facilitates compliance, and the average relationship challenge, where, indifference meets modification.
Exactly. Moira loves Dave, but Dave is simply not motivated to change for her.
And we see an immediate failure of Principle 3, distraction, and Principle 4, substitution.
We do. Moira attempts to distract Dave from the sports schedule by suggesting a night out at a new club in Deep Elam, encouraging them to discover new music.
And Dave's response is telling.
He just scowls and says, "You know me better than that." He makes it clear his routine is completely non-negotiable. His internal narrative is resistance. You know who I am. Why are you trying to trick me?
So the principle fails because Dave used the distraction as an effort to change him, not an effort to share an experience with her.
And that highlights a crucial technical flaw in applying these principles. The reward for compliance a night out is not perceived by him as greater than the reward for non-compliance, which is watching the game.
The conditioning stimulus is just ineffective.
It is, and Moira becomes desperate. She considers using Principle 6, withholding affection, and Principle 7, punishment, but she expresses this profound, just heart-wrenching fear to Rachel.
What's that?
She's afraid if she ignores Dave, he won't even notice she's gone.
And that fear tells you everything you need to know about the power dynamic in that relationship.
It does. If the potential trainer's absence isn't even perceived as negative reinforcement, the entire behavioral system just collapses.
And Rachel, still kind of high on her own success with Garret, pushes Moira toward an ultimatum, the ultimate high-risk technique.
And to show support, and maybe to justify her own relationship path, Rachel takes Moira to a Dallas Devils game. Front row seats, a gift from Garret.
This scene is vital because it shows Rachel's own adaptation. Both women hate sports, but Rachel attends because her career and her love life depend on it.
And it's during this game, however, that the narrative starts to shift for Moira. Unburdened by the pressure of trying to control Dave, she notices another player,
Bud Mayhew,
described as shy, kind, and possessing nice legs. Moira is unconsciously beginning to apply Principle 10, acceptance.
but not acceptance of Dave.
No, she's realizing that maybe the solution isn't changing the man, but changing the man who she is trying to change.
The crisis with Dave deepens when Moira tries to invite him to dinner, and he just suggests she cook at his place instead.
Another refusal to compromise his routine.
But the truly insightful moment comes when Dave reveals his internal monologue to Garret.
Yes. Dave explains that he knew Moira was trying out that man-taming crap on him. He felt the manipulation.
He saw it as subtle psychological warfare designed to change him into something we never were. And he explicitly rejects the idea of being trained like a dog.
And this is the external, male perspective that Rachel refuses to acknowledge. Her scientific approach is perceived as profound disrespect and an attack on his identity.
So Dave's resistance confirms the analysis. Because he lacked respect for her efforts and wasn't invested in their long-term future, he just wasn't susceptible to conditioning.
The training was invalidated by his conscious refusal to participate in the experiment.
The failure reaches its tragic but inevitable conclusion. Moira finally reaches her breaking point when Dave physically turns his back to her and picks up the TV remote, prioritizing his choice over her.
She realizes her attempts to use psychology to improve the relationship were simply viewed by Dave as nagging and manipulation, and it results in a necessary breakup.
So the Moira-Dave arc serves as this powerful thematic warning. Rachel's method is only effective when two conditions are met.
Profound motivation like attraction or love, and a willingness from the subject to actually submit to the process.
And if you don't have those, the method is exposed as just clumsy, transparent manipulation that breeds resentment. With that warning from Moira and Dave hanging over her, Rachel's relationship with Garret accelerates. She attends poker night with him and his friends. And this is where her behavioral psychology training finally yields a non-romantic success.
Indeed. Rachel has a degree in behavioral psychology from SMU, and she finds she has a knack for reading faces, micro-expressions, betting patterns.
She's using her training to read her opponent's tells, turning the poker table into a behavioral observation lab.
And she wins the initial $100 wager. But Garret, who is driven by their powerful sexual dynamic, immediately raises the stakes to something far more personal and controlling.
The new bet is pure escalation, confirming this high-control theme.
Winner spends the night with the loser, but the loser must do anything the winner wants in bed.
So this shifts the dynamic from a game of chance to a game of power and submission. It's testing the limits of Garret's pliability.
And Rachel, high on winning, immediately starts asserting her victory through conditioning. She implements Principle 5, reprimand, and Principle 4, substitution.
She commands Garret to clean up the party mess at 2:30 in the morning.
It's a direct reprimand coupled with substitution cleaning instead of immediate gratification. She asserts her authority, saying, if you think I can sleep knowing all this is out here waiting, then you don't know women.
And Garret, while aroused, grumbles about crazy women and obsessive-compulsive behavior, but he ultimately concedes. he starts cleaning.
They briefly consider naked housework, but they defer it, and that detail is important.
Yeah.
It shows there's a line. While Garret is willing to submit to her authority for a night, the compliance still has to be connected to mutual desire. Purely arbitrary commands are resisted.
And the ultimate test of control, the most psychologically charged scene in the sources, is the BDSM roleplay, where Rachel attempts to collect her winnings in full.
She uses the full dominatrix costume. High black boots, leather bustier, fishnet hose, a whip prop. She's actively using the visual tools of control to assert her dominance.
It aligns perfectly with her Man Tamer persona.
And Garret is instantly aroused. He willingly plays the submissive role, calling her mistress. She commands him to strip and stand on the coffee table. The sexual dynamic is electric.
It demonstrates his willingness to yield to her power fantasy.
But the internal narrative reveals Rachel's deep psychological conflict. She realizes she is caught between the desire for independence and control represented by her costume and the longing to be overtaken and cared for by this man.
So her professional role as the tamer is battling her genuine emotional desire for connection and reciprocity.
And crucially, genuine intimacy wins. The rigid structure of the conditioning breaks down. The session is interrupted not by resistance or fear, but by mutual tenderness.
She uses the whip not for discipline, but for teasing.
Exactly. She trails it across his palm and chest, making the muscles of his stomach contract. This is where the behavioral science becomes totally irrelevant.
She shifts from Principle 7, punishment and control, to a deep act of intimacy.
She gently ties him up with scars, a soft bondage, and feeds him hot fudge sauce. The dominance scenario transforms into an act of mutual passion and care.
It proves that her deepest desire isn't for control, but for connection with the man she loves. The conditioning is overwritten by genuine emotion.
Meanwhile, Rachel's success at taming Garret is having disastrous effects on Denton Morrison's publicity stunt.
Denton needs a wild man, and he's increasingly finding a domesticated partner.
So Denton confronts Garret about his improved behavior, better dressing thanks to Rachel's guidance, and most importantly, 0 penalties in 3 games.
Which is unheard of for the wild man.
Exactly. Denton complains, how can you be a wild man when you're tied to one woman?
Denton's goal isn't Garrett's happiness or career longevity, it's just brand maintenance.
He actively attempts to counter-tame him. He suggests Garret needs to get out more, be seen with models to preserve the lucrative high testosterone image. He's trying to positively reinforce bad behavior for business purposes.
But Garret defends Rachel.
He does. He refuses to let Denton dictate his private life. He points out Denton's own disastrous 3 divorces as proof of his twisted perspective on women. Garrett's loyalty is already established. He has chosen Rachel over his handler and boss.
And this leads directly to Denton's malicious countermove.
He can't control Garret, so he destroys Rachel's leverage. Denton strategically reveals the entire bet to Garret in a loud public bar.
He claims Rachel used him solely to get her TV show.
And he adds the most painful detail, that she had previously dismissed men like Garret as not her type.
The business suits and BMWs crowd.
Yep. And Garret is instantly devastated. He realizes he wasn't loved. He was a lab rat being led around by his balls for a television contract.
The betrayal is complete. All the positive reinforcement and successful conditioning she achieved relied on his belief in her sincere affection.
And once that is broken, the entire system collapses, leading directly to the climactic confrontation.
And the final confrontation explodes at the Winter Fantasy Ball. But first, we get this wonderful momentary distraction.
The supreme irony of Rhonda McMillan, Rachel's hyper-conservative sister, hosting the event.
In a shockingly sexy silver form-fitting gown with a diamond glittering in her navel, looking like a human icicle and managing to shock her dignified husband, Harrison.
So rich. Rhonda, who was terrified of her sister's reputation, has inadvertently embraced the very shock value she tried to avoid. But the focus quickly returns to Rachel and Garret.
Rachel spots Garret at the bar. His expression is dark, forbidding. He confirms what Denton told him.
And Rachel tries to explain. She insists her feelings are real, that the show is now irrelevant.
But Garret is just consumed by his pride and the sense of profound manipulation. He views everything she did purely through the lens of the wager.
He accuses her of loving the show more than him and delivers the decisive rejection. I never want to see you again.
And Rachel is left heartbroken, facing the complete ruin of both her professional plan and her relationship.
This moment sets the stage for Rachel's ultimate choice, the point where her character arc fully diverges from the principles she championed.
Denton, sensing her emotional distress, gives her one final, calculated ultimatum.
Take the television show, but only if she publicly dumps Garret, turning the whole scandal into a public relations spectacle.
The moment of truth, career dream, or the man she loves.
And Rachel refuses. She rejects the show. She realizes the depth of her feelings for Garret outweighs her professional ambition. She tells Denton simply, leave it.
She realizes a fundamental truth about their dynamic. Love had changed her far more than her behavioral efforts had changed Garret.
She became less uptight, more willing to try new things like lacrosse, and had willingly overlooked his messy habits because her admiration for him had grown beyond the need for control.
The true modification was mutual, and it started with acceptance.
And this change of heart is mirrored by Moira's final epiphany. Moira, who is now happily dating Bud Mayhew.
The shy, kind fourth-grade teacher.
Right. She confronts Rachel with the painful lesson she learned from her experience with Dave.
Moira clarifies that the man-taming principles were the actual problem. They convinced women they must remake a man when they should just accept him, flaws and all.
She realized that constantly trying to correct behavior is just nagging masquerading as science.
So armed with this realization and the rejection of Denton's cynical offer, Rachel formally quits Belinda magazine.
She refuses to let Denton use her personal life for publicity or take the show based on the manipulative Man Tamer concept. Denton is, predictably, furious.
Threatens a lawsuit.
Which Rachel correctly dismisses, noting he can't sue her for not using a concept that she owns.
And the news of Rachel's resignation reaches Garret.
He hears it on the radio while he's driving, brooding over the breakup. And this act of profound sacrifice, rejecting her lifelong ambition for him, is the behavioral change that finally registers with him.
He realizes he was a big sodding fool for storming off without hearing her out.
He recognizes the principle of reciprocity. If Rachel is willing to change her entire career path for him, then he should be willing to change his behavior for her.
So the modification now flows from genuine affection, not from coercion.
And the reconciliation is beautiful because it's founded on compromise, not control. Garret tracks her down, apologizes for his rash behavior, and proposes marriage.
And his proposal is perfectly framed in the language of compromise, acknowledging the things she tried to change.
He offers to clean his apartment and let her buy him clothes.
And Rachel accepts, offering her own reciprocal compromise. She agrees to attend lacrosse games and overlooks some of his lingering bad habits.
They move beyond the rigid 10 principles into a fluid emotional understanding.
And the coveted television career isn't abandoned, it's just transformed.
Right. Rachel's new venture is completely different. It shifts its focus from modification to matching. Her new show uses psychology to help people find the right man or woman for them.
It moves away from the whole premise that you must fix the one you have.
And their final conclusion is that they're both fundamentally changed. He's tamed, a little more controlled on the field, better dressed, and she's become more adventurous.
Less rigid, willing to embrace chaos. Garret encapsulates the thematic shift perfectly when he asks, have you tamed the wild man, or has the wild man brought out the more adventurous side of you?
They drop the old nicknames and settle on new ones, husband and wife.
And Rachel's final advice, published in her farewell column, is the ultimate rejection of her scientific past.
It is. She advises her readers. Love and respect are the two most important qualities in a relationship. You can't really have one without the other. You can overlook a lot for the sake of those two things.
It moves the solution from external technique to internal values.
The scientific approach of reinforcement and punishment proved hollow. The human needs of love and respect proved to be the ultimate and most powerful modifiers.
That journey, from these rigid 10-step principles rooted in operant conditioning to the final, necessary acceptance of human flaws. That is the central arc of this deep dive. What started as a transactional bet for a TV show just completely dissolved under the pressure of genuine chaotic passion.
And the ultimate takeaway is a profound validation of Principle 10 acceptance, but applied much earlier in the process. The behavior modification principles only seem to work because Garret was already intensely attracted to and willing to change for Rachel. His compliance was motivated by love, not by conditioning.
So when Denton exposed the bet, the conditioning instantly failed.
It did. It revealed that the relationship was built on a foundation of emotion, not science.
So Rachel's new career path focused on matching people rather than fixing them. It raises a final provocative question for you, the listener, navigating your own complicated partnerships.
Yeah.
If you realize your partner must change radically to meet your needs, a change that requires this rigorous application of psychological techniques like reward and punishment, should you employ those methods to mold them?
Or is the need for that level of modification a signal that you should embrace acceptance, principle 10, not by settling, but by moving on to find a better partner?
Someone who already aligns with your core values and requires no taming at all.
Sometimes the only thing that needs modifying is our definition of the right man.
A compelling note to end on.
Thank you for diving deep with us today. We'll see you next time.